Hello and good evening. Welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live from Abata Desawe Kanda. Also live on TV3 Ghana, on Facebook, and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. I am Alfred Concert. Tonight, Christian leaders rallying behind the mission schools as the lawsuit against the Wesley Girls High School heats up, fueling a nationwide debate over faith and education. Again, this is not the first time we've come to this point as a country. We'll have a conversation. Parliament has scrapped the government, that's COVID-19 levy, offering Ghanaians some long-awaited financial relief. But the move raises big questions about the economy. How would it absorb this loss of revenue? Stay with us. We'll have a conversation on it tonight. Plus, we have this and more, including updates on the OSP's invitation of lawyer Martin Kpebu. Plus, the president has indicated today that those who are expecting that a substantive defense minister and also Environment, Science, Technology, Innovation Minister will be appointed anytime soon. Well, you'll have to wait a little while. Just go and spend Christmas. And by January, it says that appointment will be made. We'll have a conversation tonight. We'll tease the minds of some security analysts. And also, if you recall, the Speaker of Parliament had made a statement on this a couple of weeks ago. As always, you're an integral part of the conversation. Let's hear from you. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and on X. Let's get going. Always proudly brought to you by Flamingo Paint, Simply Superior, Sasso Insecticide Spray and Coil, Kum Tum Tum Preco. We're live on 3FM 92.7. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs now.
The Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference and the Christian Council of Ghana have restated their commitment to maintaining the Christian identity of mission schools as public debate grows over whether non-Christian students, particularly Muslims, should freely practice their faith in these institutions. They argue that mission schools were established and nurtured by the churches long before the modern state and that government's involvement is a partnership rather than ownership. Private legal practitioner Martin Kpebu has honored a second invitation by the Office of the Special Prosecutor following allegations of corruption made by him. Martin Kpebu also expressed concern over the office's capacity to investigate persons who make corruption allegations against the Special Prosecutor.
My problem is not with the office. The office should stay. I'm just saying that because Kissi Ejiabin sat, he said he got, not just that, he got the information that Ken Ofori-Atta was about to flee Ghana. And Kissi Ejiabin didn't trust the Ghanaian people to help him by coming to give us the information as required by the preamble of the Constitution. He didn't get this simple constitutional law principle. And so with this, I just said, no. He can't stay in that office. He can't.
The presidency has assured protesters of the Agroniform demonstration of a swift response following their petition to have the special prosecutor removed from office. The demonstration, which lasted 2 hours, also courted public sympathy to see the Office of the Special Prosecutor as a duplication of the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO. Apostle Abraham Larbi Lincoln is the lead convener.
If it's not ready, we'll move ahead to another level. Me, I don't care. Listen, I staged a one-man demonstration. So me, I don't care about no more people that are coming over. I want to fulfill a mission. Yes. And I fulfill it. Whenever I deliver my petition, I am done with what, and I'll come back again if I don't hear anything good news.
The Minister for Education is appealing to members of the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CETAG, to call off their ongoing strike. According to the minister, government is working to address their concerns and expects a resolution within the next 2 weeks. But SETAG's national president, Maxwell Bunu, says the association cannot take any decision until its leadership consults the general membership.
We are grateful to him for the opportunity. The decision that we took wasn't my personal decision, so we made it clear to the minister that we'll consult with NEC and council and then revert. We'll do that within the week. It's not about calling off the strike, it's about resolving the issue. So it's NEC council that took the decision. Minister have said his part. Okay, so we'll consult with them and then we'll take the next decision.
The Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, in a joint operation with National Security, successfully intercepted and confiscated uncustomed goods with an approximate tax value of 3.6 million cedis across the Tema and Aflao enclaves on November 22, 2025. According to Acting Commissioner General of the GRA, Anthony Kwesi Sapong, the decisive action underscores the authority's commitment to combating smuggling and safeguarding national revenue streams while protecting legitimate businesses.
Let me emphasize that smuggling kills businesses, takes away job opportunities for our people, and denies the state the necessary revenue. If you smuggle and we arrest you, we will confiscate your goods and you will lose your capital to the state.
There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live as well on 3FM 92.7. Coming up next year on Ghana Tonight, Christian leaders and also some organizations, groupings, they are rallying support for the mission schools as the lawsuit against the Wesley Girls Senior High School heats up, fueling a nationwide debate over faith and education. This is the point we're at as a country, and look, this is not the first time we've come to this point as a country. At least over the last 5 years gone by, we've had these instances come up every now and then. So question is, at what point would we put this matter to rest? What is the existing framework or a reform of the framework that we have now to address this particular issue of religion in senior high schools that keeps coming up in different forms, whether it is about, Muslim females being allowed to wear hijab or some hairstyle, Rastafarianism. We've had it come in many forms, but this time around, here's what's happening. The Supreme Court has given Wesley Girls Senior High School 14 days, as it were, to make a clear and definitive position and their specific response to this particular case that has been brought before it. Now, this is the development as we have it. Now, earlier today, the Minister of Education, Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, had cause to make a statement about this particular development on the floor of Parliament. Take a look.
Mr. Speaker, let me also use this opportunity in debating the budget, since I speak as the present Minister for Education, that there is some ongoing debate on restrictions on Muslim students in Wesley Girls, which conflicts with international human rights standards and even standard expected of us in Ghana's Constitution and Article 33(5) and 26(1) of the Constitution. And then to assure our colleagues that we have a duty to uphold the rights of every Ghanaian child and to uphold the rights of every Ghanaian citizen. No right is divisible, and that we will not countenance any action by any person to deny any Ghanaian girl the opportunity to profess or practice any religion. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude.
Well, so that's the Honorable Haruna Iddrisu there. This position that he espouses is quite an interesting one, because there are those who have been juxtaposing this position to that of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. We'll get into it. Well, as we do know now, the Supreme Court has given Wesley Girls Senior High School that 14 days to respond to the specific allegations of human rights abuses made against it. So my colleague Dennis Paberi Wadam, Esquire, is an officer of the court. He was in court earlier today observing this particular case. in close contact. He's joining me in the studio right now. Dennis, it's always good to have you.
Always a pleasure being here, Alfred.
Wonderful. Now, you were in court earlier today.
Yes, I was.
You sat through this hearing.
That is so.
Walk us through it.
Well, so, I mean, this is a case that has high public interest. So the courts, I mean, the Supreme Court in particular was packed, both downstairs and upstairs, people wanting to see exactly what was going to happen today, because this is a matter that has gained so much attention on social media in particular.
True.
So, yeah, the expectations were that the numbers were going to be very high in the courts today. But the business for today basically was for the Attorney General to replace a statement of case that had earlier been filed. That is to say, what is the state's position on the matter?
Right.
There was an earlier position which the Attorney General, which was represented by the Deputy Attorney General in court, made a move to replace that particular document before the court.
I see.
Now, in doing so, the court made an observation that, yes, the new or the proposed statement of case which was to be replaced had expanded the scope of the matter before the court.
Right.
And that the court also observed that it had not addressed some matters which were before the court. And that was because the courts had thought that the Attorney General was representing the school itself, and the school here referring to Wesley Girls.
Right.
Mind you, there are 3 defendants in here. One is the school itself, Wesley Girls. 2 is the Ghana Education Service, and the 3rd is the Attorney General. Now, the Deputy Attorney General was representing only the Ghana Education Service and then the Attorney General's office.
Right.
So that statement of case that went to replace the earlier one was for the 2.
For the 2.
And not the
Wesley Girls.
So the court had earlier made the observation that the new statement of case did not address some factual matters. And those factual matters were that there were some allegations in the plaintiff's case that Wesley Girls did not allow some persons to practice their religion, specifically Muslims. And that there was also an allegation that Muslims were compelled to attend Methodist church service.
Right.
So those were 2 factual matters that the court had hoped that whoever was representing Methodist Girls would respond to.
Those.
So initially, I think the court had thought that the Attorney General was in place to respond to those things.
Those.
So the Deputy Attorney General who was in court had to clarify that no, he was appearing for only the 2nd and the 3rd. So what that meant was that the court needed some response from the school itself.
True.
Because the allegations were made against the school.
I see. Is that to say that Wesley Girls was not legally represented in court today?
It was not legally represented, but the record showed that they were served with the court processes.
Okay, I see.
Yes, and the court itself did acknowledge that, of course, they are at liberty not to respond. However, considering the weight of the allegations that have been made and the interest that the public has in the matter, it's only important that they be given an opportunity to respond if they are minded to respond.
Right.
And that's how come the court had to order that they be given 14 days within which to file a response or a statement of case if they want to, which hopefully would address the matters or the allegations that have been made against them.
Okay.
So the first leg of it was a success for the Attorney General. He succeeded in replacing the statement of case for the 2nd and the 3rd defendants. That is the Ghana Education Service and then the Attorney General's Department. So that particular order was also made eventually. Now, there was also another leg of the proceedings today in which the party that brought the case to court, the plaintiffs, also wanted to lead some kind of evidence to prove their allegations. Mind you, that made allegations against the school. So they wanted to lead evidence to show that what we are saying is indeed true. That's to say, to show that yes, the school actually compels Muslims to participate in Christian activities, or that it does not allow Muslims to practice their religion in school. But the court made an intervention in that regard to say that, okay, we have got to a point where these allegations that have been made by the school have not been responded to yet.
Okay.
So what evidence do you want to lead? So it was the court's view that let's hear the response from the school. If, for instance, they admit that what you allege that they are doing, they are indeed doing, it means you do not have any burden to lead any evidence.
Absolutely.
So that motion for leave to lead evidence by the plaintiffs was put on hold.
Okay.
For the reasons that I've already stated.
Absolutely.
That will be dependent on the response that Methodist Girls would give.
That's a
I mean,
Wesley
sorry,
Girls.
Wesley Girls, sorry,
Would give
would
to
give to this particular matter.
Perfect.
Now, there was a third leg, which also had to do with Democracy Hub seeking the permission of the court to also offer some information and assisting the court to resolve the matters, what we generally refer to as amicus curiae.
Right.
So they wanted that opportunity to file their amicus brief. That also was granted. It was not opposed to by any of the parties, except that their Deputy Attorney General made an intervention to draw the court's attention to the fact that generally, it is not at this stage that you allow parties, not parties, I mean friends of the court to volunteer this kind of information.
Okay.
And his reason was simple, that the case is at a point where the court, there were no memorandum of issues. So typically, when you are dealing with this kind of matters, after parties have filed their statement of cases, there's a part where they have to identify the issues that the court need to answer.
Absolutely.
I.e., what are the questions that the court need to answer?
True.
He says that because they've not got to that point where they've identified the questions the court need to answer, if there's another person coming in, there's a tendency for that person coming in and adding a question for the court to answer, which will invariably make that person a party to the case when the party should not be a party to the case. The court agreed with him, and in fact, they found on the application that was made by the Democracy Hub, which was led by Oliver Baka-Vomawo in court, that there was actually an issue which had been included, which was not originally part of the case. So for that reason, they granted this particular application subject to certain conditions. And the conditions are that after he has received the statement of cases from all the parties, that is from the Attorney General, who has filed for the Attorney General Department, and then the Ghana Education Service, and Wesley Girls, if they file one, including the memorandum of issues, which will now include that the parties have agreed on these issues, so that the amicus brief would now specifically address the issues. So when they identify the issues, that brief will help the court in deciding what the matter, will help the court to decide the issues that have already been set down by the parties. So that generally was what happened in court. But the court also cautioned, the participants in this particular case to be very cautious of their social media commentary, because the court itself had acknowledged that already, even before they got into the matter, there's a lot of commentary on social media, which they do not think it's appropriate.
And that's partly because this is not the first time we've had a situation like this. I mean, we've come to this point as a country, because every now and then you hear one case of similar nature, not of the same fact in itself. You see that, Muslim girls not being allowed to wear hijab.
Yes.
In a particular senior high school, it is taken up in court, and it becomes a matter that the court would have to determine, as against the GES having a certain framework to address it. So that's where the issue is, and that's why this matter would then generate that kind of public reaction. Dr. Peter Patanti is going to be joining us in a bit, but I want us to recall exactly, Dennis, what the Attorney General said in this particular case that he presented, his response, and then also that's foreign on behalf of the AG's office, and then also the GES, the position he espoused, and then we hear from the Education Minister, because there appears to be some difference in position.
So
right.
This particular document that he put for, just to make things very easy, document that he filed today, which contains the position of the states, because the Attorney General represents the states, was to the effect that, yes, Wesley Girls Senior High School is owned by the Methodist Church and not the states. In there is also the argument that Wesley Girls Senior High School has a right to practice its religion, and to that extent, the practice of same or protection of same should not be construed as the violation of the rights of the persons there. It goes on to state that the school is entitled to government funding, even as a religious body, and that the state cannot take away the religious rights from Wesley Girls Senior High School on basis that it receives funding from the state. Mind you, this comes from, it's on the back of the plaintiff's case that because the school receives funding from the state, it should be allowed to accommodate all kinds of persons to practice religion as they want to. So that is the general picture that the Attorney General is putting before the court.
Let's stay the steam on the fourth point, that the state cannot take away the religious right from Wesley Girls on the basis that it receives funds from the states. And that Wesley Girls are entitled to government funding regardless.
Yes.
Now let's listen to the education minister, because he's making an assurance that regardless, nobody will be deprived of practicing their right, and that is not going to deprive them of their education under any circumstance, taking into consideration this particular case. Take a look.
Mr. Speaker, let me also use this opportunity in debating the budget, since I speak as the present Minister for Education, that there is some ongoing debate on restrictions on Muslim students in Wesley Girls, which conflicts with international human rights standards and even standard expected of us in Ghana's constitution under Article 33(5) and 26(1) of the constitution. And then to assure our colleagues that we have a duty to uphold the rights of every Ghanaian child and to uphold the rights of every Ghanaian citizen. No right is divisible, and that we will not countenance any action by any person to deny any Ghanaian girl the opportunity to profess or practice any religion.
That's clear, is it not? Yes. It's at variance with the position as espoused by the Attorney General.
Well, the Attorney General is only making a case for why the school should do what it's doing.
Okay.
The Attorney General is not saying that somebody's right should be infringed upon. Mm-hmm. So when you listen to the Education Minister too, he seemed to be saying that they will ensure that nobody's rights are infringed upon.
Okay.
So the key question for the Supreme Court to answer in the coming days, which will bring all matters to rest, is whether or not the practices at Wesley Girls, depending on whether they admit them or refute them, would amount to an infringement of anybody's rights.
But essentially, the AG says the state cannot take away the religious
when it comes
rights
to funding, Attorney General says
Wesley
that they can't take away the funding. There's the last leg of it, Alfred, which has to do with a statement that came from the Catholic Bishops' Conference together with the Christian Council on the same matter. They have also taken interest in the matter, and that's what they've been saying in parts. I mean, it's a 3-page statement that they issued a while ago. Yeah. And the relevant parts that we have put out, they say that no student is compelled to attend a Christian mission school. Parents choose our institutions freely, often because of their proven track record in academic excellence, discipline, and moral formation. They go on to say that because attendance is voluntary, it is unreasonable for anybody to demand that we change our core character to accommodate religious preferences. It continues to say that Ghana offers many alternatives, fully funded public schools, Islamic schools, and private institutions, ensuring that the rights of non-Christian students are respected without requiring us to dilute our identity. And that they also recognize the practical challenges that accommodating multiple religions would create. Adjusting timetables, allocating prayer rooms, revising uniforms, or managing perceptions of inequality would impose significant administrative burdens. And that expecting us to suppress the Christian identity of our schools to accommodate every religious group would infringe upon this freedom. So in essence, the Catholic Bishops' Conference together with the Christian Council is making a case for what is allegedly happening on the campus of the Wesley Girls, to say that they would protect the values that these mission schools are built to inculcate in their students.
Dennis Pobre with that makes well. Thank you. Appreciate you as always. And Dr. Peter Partey, thank you for connecting with us. And I know the connection is stable now. First off, I want to find out from you. This is a question of, or a matter of policy, which over time we've seen it now invoke a question of law. How then do we deal with this matter, with this opportunity that has come up again, once and for all, so that we don't come to this point again in a different form of a religious situation in a particular senior high school having to be settled in court?
Yeah, Alfred, thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening to you and your viewers. I think that there's something that I always say, that in this country we don't solve problems, because most of the things that we continue to deal with are issues that keeps happening yearly. And one of them is what you are talking about, which is the religious challenges that some of our schools are facing. This issue keeps coming up. Fortunately for us, we had an opportunity to nip it in the bud. When the Achimota incident came, I was thinking that the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service would have used that opportunity to develop wide, far-reaching policy to really address the challenges that this poses in our educational institutions. Of course, we were not able to do that. The court ruled. I'm informed that an appeal was filed. I don't know whether it was pursued or not, but the Ghana Education Service and the Ministry of Education didn't use that opportunity to look at the broader issue of religion within our educational system and ensure that policies are streamlined. Because around that same time, there was this conversation around the hijab that most of the students were complaining about in certain schools. And I was thinking that we had a very brilliant opportunity to have dealt with this in a comprehensive manner to ensure that this issue doesn't come up again. Unfortunately, this year we had an experience with this same hair issue that got, was all over the airwaves, and we still had to discuss it. So for me, the way forward is simple. Fortunately, this issue is at the Supreme Court now. Someone has filed this for some time now, and the Supreme Court is preparing to give a verdict on it. I'm thinking that as soon as the Supreme Court verdict comes, the Ministry of Education would now take this verdict and then use it to develop a broader based kind of policy that would be used or implemented in all our senior high schools, taking into consideration all the angles and everything in between to enable us have a conducive school environment that promotes teaching and learning. And I think this is the best that we can get out from this ruling that is supposed to be given by the Supreme Court, because of course that is our apex court, and whatever they say, the lawyers will tell you constitutes law. So whatever the outcome will be a best opportunity for the Ministry of Education to use that to develop a broad policy that would guide religion, dressing, haircuts, and everything in between within our secondary education system. And I think that we should be able to end this kind of back and forth discussion and all that after that particular process is carried out. Yeah.
I see. But then again, let me establish, is that to say that there's no existing framework or policy to, as it were, address such issues? And that's why it always has to be a question of law for the courts to answer?
Well, what I know is that the various schools have their rules and regulations. So the point is that it's not uniform. So every school has its own guiding principles that students are supposed to follow. Okay. And those guiding principles are supposed to promote the culture of the school, to the kind of image that the school has developed over the years, and also to ensure that certain attributes, certain skills, certain practices are transferred to students for a period of time. So you go to some of these schools, they tell you that this is how we do things here, this is how we do this here. So that has been the practice over the years, that schools have their own ways of doing things. Those ways of doing things have not been harmonized by the educational system. Let me put it that way. So yes, you will see that the certain practices that are upheld in one school are upheld in another school. And and it's fine because that gives you the kind of variety and where to take your word to, and also to keep the kind of image that the school has built over the years. So that is the practice, and that is why you will see that even though the Catholic Bishop Conference statement and the Christian Council statement seek to inform us that the church will continue to uphold their values within the mission schools, some of these mission schools allow certain practices to be carried out without strict preventive measures, or without preventing students from undertaking them, because that is the practice in the school. Again, some of these other schools do not allow some of these things to happen. So that is the differentiation among the schools based on their individual rules and regulations that guide them. So what I was thinking, and I think I made this point when the Achimota issue came up, was that the Ghana Education Service had a rare opportunity to harmonize these practices and then come out with a comprehensive policy on some of the things that seem to be, not uniform among the schools. Because in some schools, around that same time, there were issues of some schools that allowed students to keep a certain kind of haircut, and then in other schools, they were not going to allow that. So GES had that opportunity to harmonize some of these things and then develop a comprehensive plan for the secondary education system. We were told that a committee was put up to think around this and then come out with a document in that perspective. We don't know how far that was or how far that went to. But then, as it stands now, I doubt if that document was able to develop, because if it was, then that document would have guided what happened this year. Okay,
Right.
and that is why I'm convinced that they didn't even pursue that.
Absolutely.
Because this year we had the same issue with haircuts,
True.
and then we were back to square one. Discussions
saying the
among
same
them,
things.
keeping it, don't keep it, the school environment and everything. We were not able to pinpoint to a particular uniform document that speaks to some of these things, and our reference point was basically the issue that happened with the Achimota student, and that ended in court. So you will see that all those who did that discussion were referencing the court's decision.
Yeah.
And that is why I think that the Supreme Court's verdict on this would be very, very important, because then we have a final say as to how religion should be handled in our secondary schools. And if that is done, then the ministry can pick on that and use that to develop a broader policy framework to guide most of the things that are not uniform among our senior high schools.
And I also, as I do appreciate your thoughts on this. Dr. Peter Patianti is Executive Director of the Institute for Education Studies, IFES, one of the foremost civil society organizations in the education space in this country. Thank you for joining us. So we'll keep an eye out at the Supreme Court as well to see how this matter unfolds. We'll be updating you on result of the way. Dennis Pope Wadam Esquire will definitely be there every time this matter comes up in court. But coming up next, President John Dramani Mahama has announced his intention to appoint ministers that's the substantive ministers for defense and environment, science, technology next year after Christmas and the New Year holidays. Now, the president's comments come after several calls on him to appoint the substantive ministers following the passing of Dr. Edward Omane-Boamah and Dr. Mohammed, that's Murtala Mohammed, in the helicopter crash. Well, there had been some speculations as to the individuals being considered for these substantive positions. If you recall, the latest to make this call on the president to consider appointing substantive ministers for these two positions was the Speaker of Parliament. Just a little over a week ago, when this stampede happened at the Elwak Sports Stadium that unfortunately led to the deaths of the young ladies, 6 of them. Well, this is what the Speaker said in Parliament when he was delivering his speech on this unfortunate incident. Take a look.
Even though some measures have been taken, I will direct our committee to follow up on the process. And then also emphasize what others have said for us to expedite the process of appointing a substantive minister. It's not because the current minister acting is not capable, but we know the pressures on him. And so we need to have somebody who will come with full report and look at some of the issues you've raised. What prevents this country from having a continuous recruitment or enlistment process?
Well, that's the Speaker of Parliament, Right Honorable Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin there. This was just a little over a week ago. Well, this is what the president said in response to some persons who have been making this call on him and even, suggesting some names in that effect. Take a look.
In fiscal discipline, we've had to be in discipline, all the appointees. We made a promise to appoint not more than 60 ministers, and some people said, how are you going to work with only 60 ministers? As I speak today, we're working with 58 ministers because, unfortunately, they say Allah gives and Allah takes. He took 2 of our comrades, and we haven't filled those positions yet. I can see people speculating he's going to appoint a new defense minister, a new environment minister. We're not in a hurry. I'll do those appointments next year after the holiday, the Christmas and the New Year. We'll fill those positions. And so those speculating about somebody going to be appointed tomorrow and all that, I mean, just take your time, go and enjoy Christmas, and then after Christmas, we will take a decision on those ones.
Well, so that's the president to the speculators and those who are doing all of that. Says go and enjoy Christmas, the New Year, come back, and then, we can resume the conversation about the appointment of substantive defense and environment ministers. Dr. Victor Doke is a lecturer at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. He is a security analyst in good standing. Doc, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Alfred, for having me.
Perfect. You just had the president there. I'm sure you're not one of those who publicly made a pronouncement on this matter of whether or not the president should consider this appointment of a substantive defense minister and then also an environment minister, because there are acting ministers already. The finance minister is acting defense minister. Well, the speaker's position was that, look, the acting defense minister, he has a finance minister portfolio which is even big in itself. And so, yes, he has to deal with that. And so it was on that premise that he made the call for at least the consideration of the appointment of a substantive minister as soon as possible. Where does the pendulum swing for you? Is it what the president has just said, wait a while till after Christmas, New Year, or the speaker's position, should be considered?
Right. I think on the back of that, let's go back a bit. 2nd October, I wrote an article with regards to why the president should appoint a substantive minister of defense in due course. And in that piece, among many reasons, I stated why the president should appoint as soon as possible, because the defense sector is a very sensitive, agency, in that defense correlates with peace, it correlates with development, it correlates to governance and politics, everything in a sphere. In that, if you don't have peace, if you are not sustaining the peace, if your defense mechanisms are weak, then you have chaos and threats will override you. So I and many others have joined the call to appoint a substantive minister because aside the sector being a very sensitive one, you need leadership, and leadership is key with regards to how you coordinate, you coordinate the agencies under the defense spectrum itself. You coordinate, collaborate with other sister security agencies in itself. And not only that, but you're looking at what? In the region also, interstate collaboration in defense, activities and whatnot. You're looking at the region which is also facing threats of terrorism, banditry, close to our neighbors and whatnot. So you need a leadership that is going to be also the political face 4, the president himself being the representative of the president, and aside that, coordinating events with regards to defense in the country. So holistically, I think with regards to this, in as much as the president has spoken, I would wish it could have been done as soon as possible before even Christmas, because whoever is coming in needs to be abreast with happenings. Take off from where the late Honorable Dr. Mani Buama left off, and then put himself or herself in the position proper, and then begin next year on a key good note. So if the president will have a rethink, that would be very, very good. Now, aside that, let's look at the internal security aspect itself. We are faced with a lot of threats. We have Galamsey issues which we are dealing with. Now, assuming we have a minister who is there coordinating events, this person will bring in new ideas, okay, aside coordinating the other agencies who are fighting against this menace. The new idea is very critical. The morale of the men themselves is very critical. Now, this person will seek and see to the welfare of the personnel. And we know welfare is key with regards to how the personnel perform their duties and their mandate. So it is very key. You will have the defense minister who sits on so many boards in the countries, in institutions. Now, what happens? An acting minister of defense may not be able to take some key decisions or even be signatory to somewhat bilateral or multilateral consultations and agreements.
I see.
In as much as the deputy minister is also there, but he may be restricted. But when you have a substantive minister, he can take bold decisions without fear or favor.
Well, I see. On that point about the bold decisions, is that to say that the current structure would not enable that bold decision or those bold decisions to be taken? There's an acting defense minister supported by a substantive deputy defense minister. Does it take anything away from the strength and the mettle to take the bold decisions you talk about?
It does, Alfred. It does. Now, you will reckon that with a substantive minister, you being the mouthpiece of the president himself, whatever decisions you have to take, you are assured that this is in line with what the president would want. Now, with the former defense minister, who was a very close, ally to the president, you would expect that the president will have no issues when he takes some decisions because he knows that it is in the best interest of the country and in the personnel. The deputy is there, yes, the acting is there, but all these two personalities will have to come back to the president for discussions because we don't have a substantive, leadership in place. Together with the service chiefs, okay, so consultation will have to be now extended. Unlike if we had a substantive minister, consultations would just be short because you would expect that the substantive minister would know definitely what key things or key policies or priorities that the president would want to handle for him to, handle it. But aside that, we have the acting, the deputy.
Yeah.
They may not be able to take some key decisions because they have to go back to the president, seek authorization before it's implemented. And if we are going to have a new defense minister, now let's look at the longevity and the continuity. The deputy is acting in some roles. The acting defense minister is acting in some roles. When you appoint a new person later, then it means the person coming in will have to now be abreast. They'll have to give the person information and whatnot. So it sort of like drags the whole process.
I see.
If we should wait till next year. But if it happens now, the earlier the person gels in and moves into position and gels, have a rapport with the service chiefs, have the rapport with other security agencies, will be best. Because you're talking about him having or her having a relationship with a good relationship, working relationship with the Interior Minister himself, the Defense and Interior Committee, on Parliament, and other sister security agencies. Right. So all this put together, Yes, you would have some decisions that will be taken, but some key bold decisions will have to be taken only by the defense minister.
Okay. Well, in the midst of all of this, the president has made his position quite clear, is it not? That, you know, the likes of you who hold this view, just go enjoy Christmas and in the New Year, wait for after the New Year, and then you would hear that announcement. And this period is just some 36, 37 days away, because if you're looking at the whole of December, 31 days, and just some 5 days to the end of November, going into Christmas. So you add all of that, it's just some 36, 37 days away, maybe all things being equal. So we'll see how the coming days will look like. But I thank you. I thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Victor Doke, for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. He is a security analyst, a lecturer at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. We're back after this quick break. After this, coming up next, the COVID-19 levy is now repealed. Parliament has now passed this particular bill. Ghanaians can expect lighter cost, but what's the cost to the nation and how to plug that loophole? Stay with us. We're back shortly. Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight, and we're live on 3FM 92.7. Parliament has approved the bill repealing the COVID-19 levy, and this was after a unanimous decision, in fact, was captured in the report by the Finance Committee of Parliament submitted to the plenary earlier today. That led to some debate on the floor of Parliament before the approval, which effectively then leads to the COVID-19 levy being expunged from our books. So then the GRA will, in coming days, will have to also take steps to ensure that this is not captured as part of the taxes that you and I will pay when we go and purchase items from the supermarket and other places where COVID-19 is the levy, that 1% is charged. This is the Honorable Isaac Adongo, who spoke on the floor of Parliament, contributing to the debate.
And you were charged a presumptive tax of 3% that he's referring to. You went to a warehouse to go and buy the stocks that you came to sell. There was an imposition of a tax. There was an imposition of a tax that you did not recover. So if you wanted to tell the effective rate that the person paid, it is the 3% plus what he paid at the warehouse to buy the stock. Today, what he paid at the store would be allowed as a deductible expense. It will be an input VAT. So if he now has a value of 2%, it is 2% he's charging, technically. So for anybody to ignorantly say that if you move from 3%, to 15%,
Honorable
you have imposed an
Adongo,
additional.
please withdraw the word ignorant.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw. That effectively, if you look at this, we said the tax that you are expecting, there is a revenue neutral. Why do we say that? You lose some. Listen, you lose some, you gain some. So what you get is that person who was losing the cost of the materials that he bought in terms of VAT now gains. Okay? But in addition to that, 3 billion Ghana cedis is being made available by decoupling, by abolishing the decoupling of the NHIM. And so the effective VAT rate, Mr. Speaker, is that you are moving from 21.95% to 20%. Let anybody tell me that you would like to pay a tax of 21.5 as opposed to 20. I don't know where my minority leader wants to tell me.
Well, in addition to this, the consideration of the value-added tax bill has been suspended at clause 66. Actually, 75 clauses in total in this particular value-added tax bill. That is the consideration of this particular proposal. But the Finance Committee's report that was submitted in Parliament earlier today, if you recall, that is part of a raft of measures announced in the 2026 budget presentation that will effectively reduce the effective tax rate, that's the effective VAT rate, from 21.9% to 20%. That's what you heard the Honorable Isaac Adongo talk about. So leaders of Parliament have agreed to move their concluding comments on the budget to Thursday. So the House has been adjourned to 12 p.m. tomorrow. This was just about an hour ago. So Parliament has been sitting for quite a long time today. And Christian Yale, who was our parliamentary affairs correspondent, is just updating us that Parliament has been adjourned as of 10 p.m., about an hour ago. Tomorrow they reconvene at 12 noon. He will be there to update you every step of the way. I am Alfred Okanse. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint, superior